Hey you guys, I thought I would come to you from Istanbul with kind of I don't know, a summary or an overview of what my trip has been like so far. So let's start by me turning the camera around and showing you what my view is right now. I'm sitting on my little balcony looking over the edge. You can see that there are apartments behind me. You can see my view a little bit. I can't see anything that's like famous in Istanbul, but this is a really nice little veranda. I am on the top floor of my hotel. You can see my little door to get inside. I'm on the top floor of my hotel, which is beautiful. I have the entire floor, but it is at 43 steps. Yes, how do I know 43 steps? Because I count them every time I come up. You're not surprised, are you? One thing that you've probably noticed if you've been following along on my Instagram stories on the Scrap Gals account is that Istanbul's really loud. Like, the traffic's loud, the people are loud, the music's loud. Everything is just really loud. And so as I'm doing this little video and you hear all the traffic noises, I hope that you can still hear me. I realized after I had done some of the Instagram stories that you could hardly hear my voice because I was trying to be like polite and quiet, but that doesn't really get you very far here in Istanbul. So I'm gonna have to do a little bit of a better job, I think, of projecting and being brave with my voice or whatever. So those of you, again, that have been following on Instagram, thank you for that. I appreciate all those sweet things that you said about my pictures. I've done some amazing things. I'm actually in Istanbul for a total of 10 days. I arrived this past Monday, and then I'm leaving Tuesday. So, you know, when you add it all up, it's almost 10 days. And I have done so many fabulous things. Now, during that time, I did take a 2-day trip to Cappadocia, which is famous for its hot air balloons and also for its fairy chimney rock formations. And I have to tell you guys, that was absolutely magical. I almost didn't do it because it was super expensive. I mean, I'm a budget traveler and this was something that cost me like almost a paycheck, okay, those 2 days in Cappadocia. But it included a lot too. You know, it included my airfare to and from Istanbul, from a place I can't pronounce. And it included, let's see, 1 breakfast, 2 lunches, and 1 dinner. It included a show that I wanted to attend. They picked me up at my hotel in Istanbul and dropped me back off at my hotel, so I didn't even have to worry about transportation. It included 2 days of touring by a semi-private kind of motor coach. We were a group of about 12 or 15. And then it also included a 1.5-hour hot air balloon ride. And you know, I got a lot for the money, and it was worth every penny. It was worth all of my nerves and having to overcome my fear of heights and all that kind of thing too. That experience was just so amazing. I'll be sharing some pictures of that experience, hopefully on my blog and also on my Instagram accounts. So I hope that you'll check in for those. I haven't really shared them yet because I did take my big camera for that experience, and there's a little bit of a process moving the pictures from my big camera, you know, to my iPad, to my Google Photos, and then being able to share them. So there's that. So the rest of the time I've been in Istanbul, and I have to say I absolutely love my hotel. I would recommend it to anyone. The name of it is Faik Pasha Suites, and it's in the Beyoğlu area. So what does that mean? For anybody who's coming to Istanbul, like, the location meant nothing to me. I didn't know where I should stay or anything. I just kind of had a leap of faith, right? So I am about 10 minutes walk to Taksim Square, which is a super touristy area, and also about 6 minutes walk to Istiklal Street, which is like one of the main streets in Istanbul. When they talk about Taksim Square, they talk about it kind of like the equivalent of Times Square, New York. So that gives you sort of an insight into where I am. The nice thing is that I'm on a very residential street. There isn't a lot of noise where I am. So even though Taksim Square itself has a reputation for being kind of party town, I haven't really run into that. Now, I have to say, the day that the Cappadocia tour people picked me up, I had to be waiting for them on the street at 3:45 a.m. And that was a little scary. I mean, I don't think it's a bad neighborhood. I just think that it's just a big city. And it was so strange because they're not used to seeing women out alone at night like that. And these taxis kept doing these crazy loops and asking me if I wanted a ride, and I kept saying no. And I know they thought that, I was crazy or whatever, but, nothing happened to me. It was totally fine. Nobody bothered me. And that has been good. So kind of continuing that, one of my big, I don't know, fear isn't really a right word, but maybe one apprehension that I had before coming to Istanbul was the fact that I'm a single woman traveling alone. And I have to say, people have been so nice, so accommodating, so friendly. I really have been surprised by how welcoming everyone has been. My popularity with waiters continues. There are some stories there that I'll be telling my friends in real life. But let's just say that waiters still, kind of appreciate me. And I have been surprised at how friendly lots of the young women are when they want to take pictures or whatever. They'll see me and they'll ask me to take their photo, and then they'll reciprocate for me. And I think it's because this is not a culture where you necessarily would go up to a man and ask for a favor or ask a question even. But women feel pretty comfortable, I think, coming up to other women. And most everyone speaks some English. And if they don't, we're able to, communicate with hand signals and pointing and that kind of thing. Today, for example, I stopped at a little, I would call it a bodega. I don't know what they call it in Istanbul, but I stopped at this little bodega on the street and bought a couple of Cokes to bring back to my hotel room and put in the mini fridge. And yeah, hear that traffic. And the lady didn't speak any English, and I have like one word in Turkish. So I pointed and smiled, and she showed me on the calculator how much money I owed her, and then I was able to tell her thank you. So the one word that I have in Turkish is thank you. It's teşekkürler. And I'm probably slaughtering it, but people have been so sweet, and they respond, you're welcome, and some other stuff, because I don't really know what those words are. I also recognize the words for entrance and exit, even though I can't pronounce them, because, I'm constantly looking for that, the entrance and the exit to various places. So I thought that was kind of funny. So what else do I need to tell you? I guess I could talk a little bit about the money, because, that's always something to keep in mind when you are traveling. The Turkish lira is actually not very strong right now. So a little over 5.5 Turkish lira equal $1. So that means that, I bought 3 postcards today, for example, for $1. They were 6 Turkish lira, which is basically $1. Now, that is good in that, I just divide by 5 and whatever's extra is extra. I don't worry about it that much. But what I'm finding, I've talked to a couple of people who live here, and the problem is that they're starting to really increase the prices of things for average people because of the influx of tourists. And that means that a lot of locals are being priced out of things that that they want to do. So for example, I went to this open air museum in Göreme as part of my trip to Cappadocia, and it was like, I guess, 25 American dollars, so that was like 120 Turkish lira. And that is a lot of money for a local when you think about like how much money they make at their jobs and that kind of thing. And so it means that local people to Turkey aren't able to travel and enjoy the museums and the sites of their own communities because it's being priced for the tourism business. Now, at that same actual site, I went into the museum store because I love to buy like postcards or notebooks or whatever, and I was shocked at the prices. A scarf, and I did want one, but a scarf was 100 American dollars. It was over 500 Turkish lira, and I just couldn't believe that. I mean, that's just not reasonable. It's not reasonable for me as a tourist, but it's certainly not reasonable for the people who live here. And so I think it'll be interesting to see over the next couple of years even what happens in terms of how that all plays out. And I don't know, it's a really great value right now. So, if you're thinking about going to Turkey, I would say the economy is good for Americans to visit here right now. My hotel, let's see, it was like $700 for 9 or 10 nights, which I thought was pretty great. I mean, considering that included my transfer to and from the airport, it included an hour massage, it includes breakfast every day, I have an entire floor to myself, a private bathroom, of course. The shower looks like something out of like the space shuttle. It's ridiculous. I have a terrace and air conditioning and free Wi-Fi. I thought that was a pretty good deal. Certainly I could have gone with something a little bit less expensive, but since I didn't really know where I was going and I didn't really know the community and that kind of thing, I wanted to go with something that wasn't the cheapest. This is a very middle of the road kind of establishment, I think. So that's something to think about if you are considering coming to Turkey as well. Now, the other thing, kind of back to the whole single woman traveling alone, I wondered, would I feel safe? Would I feel awkward or stared at or anything like that? And I really have not felt strange at all. I mean, occasionally I've seen some looks or whatever, but that happens anywhere that you go. I mean, that's not specific to Turkey. There are women dressed in every way that you can imagine here. There are women in full burqas, and the only thing you see is the eyes. I may have that terminology wrong. My apologies if I do. There are some women who wear, like street clothes and then just the hijab. There are women who, kind of look like go-go dancers. in the street. There are women who have kind of a combination of those things. You know, you just really, you see everything. And I have been careful to wear things that are a little bit more modest. You know, I've been very careful, for example, not to have a bunch of cleavage going on or anything like that. But you can see here, I have bare arms and I have on a dress and my legs are bare, and that's fine. That hasn't been a problem at all. I do think the fact that I'm traveling alone is kind of an interesting aspect for a lot of people, and generally it only comes up when I'm buying a ticket into like an exhibition or a museum or something, or it comes up when I'm having a meal out, you know, because inevitably they're like, you know, just a table for one. What are you traveling? Where are you from? You know, are you traveling by yourself, et cetera, et cetera. And, you know, there are different thoughts on that. I'm generally pretty open about it, but I don't tell anybody my life story or anything like that. A lot of people have assumed that I am not American. I have a lot of people who keep talking to me in Spanish. They seem to think that I'm from Brazil or Spain or Venezuela, or what did I get today? Portugal. You know, I guess I got a little bit of sun and they suddenly think that I'm exotic. But, you know, once I say that I'm from the U.S., you know, one of two things happens. Either the person will tell me someone he or she knows that has moved to the United States, or that person will talk about wanting to go to the United States. And so, again, people have been, you know, super welcoming, super friendly. I don't know if you can hear the cheering behind me. I don't know where the cheering is or what it's for, but I guess somebody's having some fun. I don't know. Okay, so we'll see what else. I did go see most of the big sites. I have seen the Hagia Sophia. I saw the Blue Mosque. I saw the Sultan's Square, basically where the two obelisks are. I was able to visit the Grand Bazaar and the Egyptian Spice Market, which was lots of fun. I have wandered various neighborhoods, you know, kind of accidentally on purpose. You know, maybe I thought I was going somewhere and I got turned around and that kind of thing. So that I've enjoyed that. Today I took a cruise on the Bosphorus so that I could see some of the palaces on both the European and the Asian side. I also visited the, I'm going to slaughter this, Dolmabahce Palace. I know that was bad. And harem, which, by the way, is supposed to be pronounced harem. Did you know that? I didn't know that until I listened to my audio guide in English today. I also, you know, like I said, I had a massage and it was fabulous. And there are just a few more things that I want to try to do before I head over to Crete. I'd really like to go to a traditional Turkish bath, a hammam, and have like a spa day. I think that would be really fun, so I may try to fit that in. I kind of want to go to the Galata Tower, which is one of the famous sites, you know, here in the city. But I hear that the lines are super long, so I'm trying to decide if I want to get up like really early and try to beat the crowds. Maybe I could do that, you know. Let's see. I also want to do just a little bit more shopping in some of the street stalls, and so I need to do like some research tonight maybe and see where I could find some of those. You know, I haven't really seen them in the parts of the city that I've been visiting beyond the Spice Market and the Grand Bazaar, and that honestly, that it was just so crowded and so tight that I don't really want to go back there to actually shop if I don't have to. It was great to see it. It was great to experience it, but I don't necessarily want to go hang out there, if you know what I mean. So anyway, those are just some things that I'm thinking about doing in my last 36 hours or so that I have here in Istanbul. I have to say, this is a trip I am glad that I made. It was one of those announcements where my friends and family were sort of like, why are you going to Istanbul? Isn't that a little dangerous, you know? And it honestly has been wonderful. Now, there are some things to get used to. You know, when you get on the metro, for example, you go through a metal detector, and I've never done that anywhere else in the world that I've visited. When you go into any kind of museum or religious site or monument, again, you go through a metal detector. There are police on the street carrying machine guns, you know, so that takes a little getting used to. Tanks coming down the center of the street are not unusual as a method of crowd control. So that's something to think about too. You know, just don't be taken aback by it. I think I've realized what all the shouting is. There was a huge police presence in Taksim Square and along Istiklal Street, and I asked my hotel concierge about it. And he said that on the weekends there are often demonstrations, and so the police come out as a kind of crowd control measure just to make sure that things don't get out of hand. So I think that's what all the shouting is about. That's why I went ahead and headed back to my hotel. I just felt a little uncomfortable in the really big crowds on Istiklal Street and with all the police presence. And I think I'm glad I went with my gut there. So, you know, I'd kind of like to see what they're yelling about, but I think it'd probably be best for me just to stay put. And, you know, put this video on YouTube for you guys. All right, well, if you have questions about Istanbul, if you want to know some things about, you know, how I traveled here and all that, I am willing to answer them. Just leave me a comment here, and, you know, if you like these kinds of videos, I hope that you'll subscribe. All right, I'll catch up with you soon. I hope to do another one of these videos when I'm in Crete. Bye, guys.